As the concrete finisher, you play a very important role on any concrete job. If the finishing is done badly, all the best mixing and placing efforts that came before and all the best curing that comes after will not improve the final product. The finish work is always the most visible part of the project, so the work of the finisher has a lasting effect on the appearance of the job. All finishes must also be cured. Curing compounds are applied to finished concrete to maintain the moisture and temperature in the concrete as it hardens. This allows for a more complete hydration process and stronger concrete. Curing compounds and methods are applied as soon as possible after the area has been finished. This concrete has just been placed. However, the work is not over. Before the bleed water starts to form, you have to remove the lines that were created by screeding and consolidate the surface with a magnesium float. This will leave the surface semi-rough and open to aid in the hydration process. On large areas, you would do this by using a magnesium bowl float. During this process, you are accomplishing two things. You are consolidating the surface of the concrete by causing the larger rocks to embed deeper and making the finer sand and cream rise to the surface. Also, you are filling in holes and removing high spots with the float. After you have achieved a flat and consolidated surface, the concrete will need to be hand-floated at the edges of the form to fill in any voids and remove any excess concrete that may exist. After cleaning up the edges of the concrete, it should be left alone so that the hydration process can begin to take place. The initial hydration process may take several hours, or it may take place almost immediately, depending on the weather. In hot or windy weather, this process could happen very rapidly, and in cold weather, it could take several hours. As you can see here, once the bleed water has evaporated, the concrete will not have the wet sheen that it had at first, and the color has changed slightly. Once the concrete reaches this point, you need to edge and joint it. If it sets up too much, you will not be able to move the rocks that are just below the surface with the edger or the jointer. This will result in a very unattractive finish and subject the concrete to random cracking. At the same time that the edging and jointing are taking place, you will need to run a magnesium float over the concrete, and you will see the finish starting to take shape. The magnesium floats to some extent seal the surface, slowing down the hydration process slightly and bringing the fine cream to the top. Do not overwork the concrete because it will bring water to the surface and prolong the finishing process. It may be necessary to wait a short period of time and repeat the process until you have acquired the desired finish and all of the lines have been removed. On exterior concrete, where a non-slip surface is needed, you would be ready to broom this concrete and the finish would be complete. On interior concrete, you would begin the hard trowel finish using a steel trowel. This would produce a dense, smooth surface. Once the finish is complete, you need to cure the concrete. Curing is needed to maintain acceptable temperature and moisture levels so that the concrete will gain the proper strength. The type of cure will be partly dependent on weather. Moisture curing method. In this case, these workers are using a process called moisture curing. Moisture curing can be done in several ways. Usually the use of burlap or burlene and water to keep the concrete wet. This holds in moisture. You could also use sprinklers, soaker hoses, or ponding. This would last for several days. Cold weather situations. In cold weather, the concrete needs to be kept at 50 degrees or higher to obtain an acceptable strength. This can be done by using insulated blankets specially designed for concrete. Even the use of a tent built of scaffolding and tarps with space heaters inside can be used. Usually, the type of finish and cure are determined by the project engineer on the job. Now that you know the steps to produce a quality concrete product, you can plan ahead and produce strong, long-lasting concrete products that you can be proud of for years to come.